Hello everybody and welcome back to my in-depth Legion guide. This is video number 3 and we're still on the topic of picking a good role. On the last video, which I apologize was quite long, we talked about picking a good opener, and I said that the opener is like the first part of a story that you should try to tell when you pick your role. So something like, I'll start with this unit, and then on wave 3 I will be weak, I will drop that unit, and so on. So that kind of story which should cover, hopefully, the first 10 waves. I'll try to show you everything you need to know to come up with that kind of story, to not kind of throw early game for not being able to cover a certain wave. To not make this video escalate again and then yet another 1.5 hour video, I will try to first give you a couple of general tips, some very general advice, and afterwards we just hop into a couple of examples. And if you still have some questions then, or want to learn something about specific units, please just let me know. There's been quite some great feedback so far. Thank you everybody who has contributed to also giving suggestions on the upcoming videos. I really appreciate that. Okay, so first advice, I've mentioned a few times before, so I'll try to keep it short. Try to pick your fighters as, I would say, chronologically. So like telling a story. You can, for example, deselect all the fighters at the start and only then select the opener. Then you will know, okay, I will place this on wave 1. I might also be strong on wave 2, but I need an answer for 3. You pick a unit for that. So you go through that and you always try to say, considering the fighters which I already have, which wave am I weak on, and you then try to pick a solution for that. So you go through that chronologically, as in how will the waves evolve. The second tip is also quite obvious. Try to have an answer for at least the first 10 waves. I mean, it's really important to identify if there are waves where you have no answer for. And if you do find such a wave, so let's say, for example, wave 6 or wave 10 are typical waves where people might struggle, for example, on wave 10 because they have no good single target damage, either try to use your reroll ability early enough and see if you can fix that problem, or otherwise, what I also really think is super important, this is a team game, communicate with your partner, with your teammate. Tell them, hey, I'm gonna league on wave 10 no matter what. And maybe they can cover, maybe they can build a fatalizer and just cover you, and it's not a big problem. You just accept the league, you will league, let's say 70% or something, but then be strong in wave 11 and 12, that's fine. Yeah, but make sure that at least one of you can really cover the wave. General piece of advice number 3, try to have a good balance of damage and tanks. This is something which I quite often see going wrong, where people might either not pick sufficient tanks or too many tanks, or just forget to place them because they have not thought about the story, like when should I have a tank? So let's say I really like the Fire Elemental opener, it's fantastic damage and it can definitely tank the first couple of waves, but come wave 5 or 6, something like that, then you really need to have some kind of tank so that your damage doesn't die, stuff like that. So make sure that you have some tanks. There are a couple of not so obvious ones, like Fatalizer can serve as a tank, for example, a Sovereign and Azeria. They're not really dedicated tanks, but you can definitely turn them into tanks. If you know your positioning, see the first video. Okay, and my fourth and last tip of general advice before we hop into the examples is try to use fighters with different attack and defense types. You can, I mean, my suggestion here is that you hop into the codex, so let's quickly hop into the game. You'll find the codex here on the bottom with that book and then codex, and you can look at the units. At the start of the game, when you pick your role, the game will tell you if you, for example, have no PS damage, etc. It will tell you you don't have PS damage. However, it might also sometimes lie to you and, for example, say, oh, you don't have magic damage. when that's not necessarily true. First of all, there are a couple of units dealing pure damage. I mean, for example, the Halo is one example, and the Proton/Atom, they deal pure damage and are kind of equally good on all waves, damage typing wise. I mean, especially the Halo requires you to have few units which it attacks because it has a ramping damage. So it's not equally good on every wave. I don't want to say that. Same kind of could be said about the Yozora, although the Yozora should be disregarded as a damage dealer. But except for that, the game might still lie to you in a different way because it only looks at that primary, at the primary attack type. So if we, for example, take a look at the Shadow Dancer, then it will tell you the attack type is Pierce and tell you, oh, you lack magic damage. But what it doesn't consider is that the ability deals magic damage. So all the clones do not deal Pierce damage, they deal magic damage. I do not get tired of suggesting this to the devs. I mean, hey, if any dev is watching this, please insert the logos here for the damage typing. It would be so helpful. It's only done on a few. We will see that now. Let's go quickly through the list because it's really important to know the damage typing so that you can pick a good role. So the Shadow Dancer and Red Knight deal pierce damage, but the clones deal deal magic damage. Let's move on. We have the Tree of Knowledge, also dealing magic damage on death. Otherwise, it's an impact unit. Then we have, let's see. We have the Fire Elemental. The Fire Elemental has a bouncing attack dealing magic ability damage. We have the Violet. It's also an impact unit, but it deals magic ability damage again. We have the Disciple and the Starcaller dealing pure ability damage instead of pierce. Then we have the Fire Archer, which is a pierce unit, but also deals magic ability damage. Also, I mean, keep in mind, the Bone Warrior, if you pick it, it's gonna count as Impact Swift. However, the upgraded versions are also like Impact Fortified. So the game might also lie to you regarding the typing here for the Bone Warrior. Right, let's continue. Do we see any more? I mean, the Buzz and Consort deal magic damage on death. It's not all that important, I would say. Do we have any more? We probably do. The Berserker deals pierce damage, but the ramping damage is magic. Yeah, same for Fatalizer. And the Boar deals impact charge instead of pierce. Do we have anything else? We have the Gates. The Gates count as impact and natural. However, they spawn two types of units. They spawn melee units, the tanks, as you will, which are actually impact and natural, but they also spawn ranged units, which are magic and natural. So there are, if the game tells you don't have sufficient magic damage, there's a good chance that you actually do, right? So keep that in mind and don't let the game fool you into thinking you don't have magic damage. Okay, I actually have to correct myself. First of all, I totally forgot to mention the Bazooka and the Zeus. The Bazooka is shown as an impact and swift unit. You can, however, evolve it into a Pyro dealing magic damage, or the Zeus. And the Zeus is also an impact unit dealing magic damage with its ability. I also thought of one more piece of advice which I want to give you before we get into concrete examples. And that is to look out for good synergies. It might be a bit difficult right at the start to know the really strong synergies for everything, like the aura units, on which unit is a Butcher really strong, on which unit is a White Mane a little bit better, Ocean Templar, etc, etc. But I also, because it's a little less obvious to look at that, when you're in the main selection at the start of the game, you can click at the chat and check out the Legion spells of that game. And I would always look out what the spells are here, because they can have a significant impact on the kind of game you want to go for. So, for example, with the Magician, if I get to pick a whole lot of mana units and I get to have like a hexagon of mana units, amazing. So that really helps me. Stuff like Divine Blessing, Vamp, Pulverizer, all of that can be really important for your role. I mean, I don't really want to go into how the Legion spells should affect your mastermind choice. That will be a different video, but keep that in mind for picking your role. Right, so before I continue to pick a role, my suggestion is that you pause the video as soon as I click a mastermind. You see the selection of 10 fighters and just kind of try to think about it for a second. How would you go about that? Take your time as long as you need, and then I will present how I would go about it. And I'm not saying that my solution is the only solution or the best solution. It's just one way of going at it, okay? Right, so I'll just go for some very basic stuff, and I picked the cash out. There are a whole bunch of openers which we could go for, and I will try to go through this as before, as I suggested, and try to come up with a certain story. So what I see here is multiple ways to open. So I could open with Yozora, I could open with a casket plus a tier 1, I could open with double atom, with Willshroom. There are plenty of options here. Also some funky stuff, maybe 2 Howlers and a Willshroom or something, I don't know. And deciding which one I want to go for kind of depends on my teammate's role. So keep that in mind. Let's say my teammate is really bad on 4 and 6, yeah? Then I go for Yozora, not a question. But if my teammate is really bad on 5, let's say they went for a Nightmare opener, then I don't want Yozora because we'll both be weak on 5. Keep that kind of stuff in mind. But seeing that we don't have a teammate right here, let's just come up with some kind of story. I would probably open double atom. Yeah? So that is my first unit which I place, and it will be strong wave 1 and wave 2. I don't need to add anything else. I do need an answer for wave 3. What I could go for is the Cursed Casket. It's a little bit expensive. It would prevent me from pushing a lot during the first couple of waves because I need 130 gold. The advantage of that, however, is that the Cursed Casket is also really strong on wave 4. Right? That might be one way to go about it. Now I'm pretty bad on wave 5. So for wave 5, I see a whole bunch of options. I mean, you could go for a Howler, you could go for a Butcher. The Butcher doesn't have prime targets so far regarding what units to put the aura on, or maybe something really expensive like an Antler. But then again, we cannot really push all that much. So let's maybe pick the Howler. That takes us to wave 6 now. On wave 6, I want to drop a Willshroom because with the Willshroom, that helps me on wave 6, 7, and to some extent also on 8. So on 6, it's a great damage dealer and a good tank. On 7, same. On 8, it's just a good tank, but not a good damage dealer anymore. So now our problem is going to be wave 8, 9, and 10. And for that, I would try to drop a Shadow Dancer. The Shadow Dancer, if I can drop it on wave 8, amazing. It helps me a lot there. I already have sufficient tankage that it doesn't die instantly. And now it provides some damage for that. It's really strong on 9. So now, the thing we might... I mean, if it covers wave 9, next wave would be 10. I can just go for a Sunfang or 2. I already have that covered. I have more single target damage with the Proton. The one thing I'm kind of lacking there is tankage. And I mean, the best tank would be the Yozora. However, I would probably rather go for the Antler because the white main buff really helps my Shadow Dancer. That would probably be my pick here. I'm not saying it's the only way to go about it. It's totally up to you to also go with totally different openers and pick something different, but that should help me to cover at least the first 10 waves. If we look a little bit further, where should we expect to send? So wave 11 and 12, the Shadow Dancer / Dread Knight easily covers our ass there. But if we have a strong Dread Knight, we should always expect a wave 13 send. So we should try to, I don't know, communicate to our mate, hey, can you please be strong on 13? I'm definitely expecting a send there. And something like wave 11 or 12 would be a good time to pick to use our reroll ability. Okay, let's just go for another example. I'll try to make it a little more quick this time. So I see a whole lot of really good stuff here. This is a beautiful roll. So the first thing I see is I have Poda with Steeds. That would be my primary target to open here. So, I mean, how does this one play out? I open Poda. It helps me on wave 1. It would lead to 40 on wave 2. And it basically covers everything wave 1, 2, 3. And I'm weak on wave 4. For wave 4, what would really help me is Walk. Walk is amazing on wave 4. The synergy of Poda and Steed is just crazy good. So these three are definitely something I want to go for. The Steed also synergizes extremely well with the upgraded versions of the Walk, but that's I'll keep that for another time. So Poda wave 1, 2, 3, Walk wave 4. We don't really need to add anything for 5. We're kind of weak on 6 and 7. We want to have something like Bone Warrior, which we can use to adjust our split. See first video. We definitely need that on wave 6. And now we need a good answer for wave 7. There are like 2 really good options here. The Cursed Casket would give us some tankage and some AoE damage into the wave 7, would be really, really strong there. However, I would probably go for the Elite Archer instead, for the reason that the Elite Archer will cover wave 10 for us. So nothing else we've shown here is really amazing on wave 10, except for maybe a Lioness, but that should help us a lot there. So we have those waves covered. We might be expecting a Mimic on wave 7 with what we've shown so far, but except for that, we should be looking quite good. And now, I mean, basically, what are we now? Weak on wave 14, I would say is the next weak one. Like 13, 14, we should take a look at. We already have the Elite Archers to help us there, but maybe an Avenger to round it off might be really good. So this would be my role for this beautiful Poda Steed with Magician in the game. I mean, that's just outrageously good. Okay, let's go for yet another example. I hope you're not tired of examples yet. Maybe we make this the last one. Welcome to Nova. What do we see here? I mean, pause the game. There was some amazing stuff here. There was some... There's some good hidden stuff in this role, and it's maybe not the most obvious. All right, so I hope you had the time to check out what you want to go for. What I would do is I would definitely play around these 2 units. The Elite Archer being a flying unit, and the Tempest, the upgraded version, the Leviathan, buffing that. That's absolutely carry. Now, our problem is we have very, very few tanks here in that role. I mean, we have an Iron Scales, for example. We could try to turn the Sovereign into a tank, and we could maybe make use of a Tree of Life to make one of those into a really strong tank. So those are my thoughts here for the beginning. Okay, so we open with Elite Archer. The Elite Archer can never open alone. You leak almost 100% to a Snail. So you want a tier 1 unit to go with it. I would go for Proton. I mean, you could also go Harpy, I guess, but the Proton is also flying and also profits from the Magician. I mean, same goes for Harpy, but you don't place the Harpy on the Tempest. So we have Elite Archer plus Proton on wave 1, so the Elite Archer here, the Proton there. That also covers us for wave 2, and then we need to add something for wave 3. It doesn't need to be a whole lot. I would go for the Infiltrator at that point. Why? The Infiltrator provides some tankage, damage on wave 3, tankage on wave 4, and then, most importantly, damage on wave 5. So for wave 5, the Elite Archer is kind of weak. You need a really good split to kill a lot of units. The Infiltrator can provide us with more single target magic damage to help us on wave 5. But we're not really looking strong tank-wise. I would also add a Treant as one of our tanks. And now we only have one more unit, so we gotta make it worth. But let's see. We definitely have wave 5 covered with these two. Wave 6 with the Infiltrator also strong. Also, Atom's really good on 6. Then the Elite Archer is good on 7 and 8, especially if we add a Tempest here. For wave 9, maybe we can go for a Leviathan and also drop like 1 or 2 Treants. That should help. Wave 10, we have the Elite Archer and the Infiltrator and the Atoms. And now we're kind of looking at a wave 11, which doesn't look all that amazing, I would say. We could try something like Sea Dragon, but now we already get a couple of... I mean, we get one warning that we have a whole bunch of units which cost like almost the same. Not the most crucial warning, but the thing which I'm kind of lacking is a unit which really helps us on the late game. I would probably go and pick one of the two. Either the Sand Badger as a tank, or just go for a Sovereign with the Tree of Life on it. That might be a really carry unit for you for the late game. Keep in mind the Elite Archer wants a strong split and a strong tank, and maybe we can just pull that off with this combination here. So I think I would go with this role, and I'm not saying it's the only way to go about it. There are definitely many ways to play this role. I would just always go for the Flying Archer combination here. I think these two are mandatory. Alright, so I hope that you learned something new today, that it will help you climb the ladder more quickly, and that you also enjoyed watching. I would like to use the opportunity to thank everybody who has made suggestions on upcoming videos, and also just given me some feedback. I really appreciate that. Special shout out to Darkquacker for suggesting some really cool formats for new videos. Sorry, I have not been able to work on that yet, but I definitely will do that in the future. So if I left anything unclear, or if you would like to know something, learn something in particular, please just leave a comment, tell me about it, and I will take care of it. All right, then good luck climbing the ladder, and enjoy your games. Bye-bye.